Hello and welcome to day 16 of my recombobulation countdown to my birthday. Yesterday I spent most of the day with friends. I was going to say yesterday I gave the talk at Unity, but yesterday I sat with friends in the hospital, and one of my dear friends is planning to have surgery this coming Friday, and then his wife on last Sunday started having chest pains and wound up in the ER. And so that whole thing of stress, I just observed love in action, really. That especially it seems for women, but I think it's true to varying degrees for all of us, women have been so conditioned and well trained to put everyone else's needs first, often compromising their own. And so I saw my dear friend who experienced pain and heart attack symptoms, and fortunately they were able to pinpoint that it was what they're guessing is more stress related, given that her husband will be having a surgery this coming Friday. But it's where, we're always, no, here, let me do it for you, or I can do it better, or let me imagine what's going to happen so that I can somehow prevent or usurp or shift the course. And what I've been stepping back and observing is how the whole consciousness process is about not trying to figure it all out, but rather to allow by really drinking in what is. But just what I became aware of since we were reflecting on Mother's Day is how women have really adapted and taken on a lot of the masculine model of figuring it out, rather than really trusting and living from that deep down place. When I gave my talk, one of the stories that I recounted was a trip I took when I turned 50. It was kind of my chosen rite of passage, having just moved here to the Northwest where I live. And at that point I thought, oh, do I have it in me to go on another adventure? And so I did a 4-day training called Warrior Camp up in Pemberton, British Columbia. So it was stretching beyond my comfort zone to drive across the border to go to this place where I would know no one and really had very little idea what I had gotten myself in for. And so at that event, the first day was climbing a mountain. We went on this arduous hike, and it was all to help us reflect upon, are we the one that sacrifices our well-being to get everybody else to the top? Are we the one who makes it to the top because accomplishing something is more important than everything and anyone else? Or were we able to find some balance of how we got up the hill? Were you competing against everyone else? Were you competing against yourself? Or were you able to lay down that whole role of competition? The next day was a ropes course challenge, and I love that. Perhaps because I don't have any depth perception, it's not too bad being climbing around on cables up in the air, or shinnying to the top of a telephone pole and jumping towards a trapeze. those, instead of being fearful, and there truly were people there who were fearful, that to me was exhilarating. That was fun. That was, suspending judgment. It's like, as much as I can do, great. And I did my best to convince my mind that I knew that I was harnessed and couldn't fall. The next day was they had guys dressed in big padded suits like ninja warriors, and it was a self-defense training. And we went through all of these protection things. Like, we had to convince ourselves that we could step forward and prevent ourselves from being attacked or raped by these big ninja guys, and what were we going to do about it? Where was our voice? I realized that it was that insight that because I had been molested and when I was about 13 by an authority figure, a doctor actually, doctors, that it was, I didn't have a voice. Somehow I realized that I had taught myself how to stay silent rather than speak up for fear that bad things would happen if I spoke up. Then, because I was being passive, it got amped up a notch where this guy was saying to me, okay, so suppose you have your kids or your grandkids standing behind you. Are you still going to let me pass? Are you going to let me attack you? And that's where I found my voice. That's where I found my voice. So I knew that women weren't necessarily the warriors. They were protectors in a different form. I took a stand. I knew that I could take a stand. And it was especially evident that my whole calling in my life has been about taking a stand for the women and the children. The last day was a sweat lodge ceremony, and I remember the indigenous chief or elder of that, who was kind of setting up the intentions for the sweat lodge ceremony. He said, this sweat lodge ceremony is for the men to offer forgiveness, ask forgiveness, and offer their apologies to the women. So whether you have ever mistreated a woman, as a culture, acknowledging that women have been mistreated. And the thing that was most healing to me about what he said was, said to the men, you need not understand the women. And truthfully, there are those times where I don't even understand me. I just know that there is such an intuitive power and energy alive in me, and I do my best to let love have a voice through me. But it's where he said to the men, you need not understand them, however, you do need to honor them. And in that moment, I really got that I deserved to be honored and respected. And so I know that I have become more bold and more outspoken as I have aged. And I am kind of hoping that that continues, where I have a louder voice and am more likely to ask forgiveness rather than permission. So with that, I am grateful that you have joined me for one more day of recombobulating together.